Pacers' first double-digit win of the year. They beat the Knicks. Haliburton and Mathurin go crazy. A huge bounce-back performance from the team to get back to 500. So much to discuss on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name is Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, boy, oh boy, what a weird weekend for the Pacers, getting shellacked by the Hornets on Friday. I already talked about that, and then smoking the Knicks on Sunday. Smoking is a bit extreme. They did win by 10. Great fourth quarter for the Pacers to get it done. Their first double-digit win of the season, 132-121. And the big story, Ben Mathurin, career high, absurdly good game from three, getting to the rim, getting whatever he wanted. And an even perhaps bigger story is Tyrese Haliburton has his best game of the year. Right after a not-so-good game in Charlotte, he was terrific, looked like the guy from last year, making shots, getting to the basket, setting up his teammates. That looked like the Pacers, which is happening a lot recently, but not enough. Four of their last 6 games have been wins. They beat Boston, Dallas, Orlando, and New York, and lost in between to New Orleans and Charlotte. What a strange team. They're back to 500. They're very banged up. We have a lot to talk about today, but we have to start with the biggest story to me of this game. Tyrese Haliburton was tremendous. 35 points for Tyrese Haliburton. His previous high this season was 25 in that game against the Mavs, where the Pacers looked pretty dang good. 35 in a season where he's averaging less than 15. 14 assists, also a season high. Both of his offensive categories that make him him. He had a career high by a lot. 10 extra points, 2 extra assists. That is now 5 of his last 7 games. He's had a points, assists, double-double. And importantly in this game, made his 2s and his 3s, right? I don't get to do the thing where I say he did bad in this, but great in this, right? This is what he looked like when he was on a tear to start last season. And obviously it's 1 game out of 10. We can't get ahead of ourselves. But for a guy that has said, and I just wrote about this, he's going to get out of his slump is what he has been saying. He just needs to get through it. He believes he will, believes in the work he's doing, believes in the abilities that he has, said something to the effect of like, it always rains before the sunshine. Believe a game like this was coming. 4 for 10 from deep, obviously significant for a guy who's been historically a 40% three-point shooter. 7 for 8 on 2s. Huge when he can get both of those going. When he can get his to-the-rim pressure going as a scorer and can hit the 3s, he's so hard to guard. But wait, 11 free throw attempts for Tyrese Haliburton. Huge for a guy who's not typically a get-to-the-line kind of dominant threat. Right? 6 was his highest free throw attempts in a game of his last 6 outings before this, right? It's just so significant when he's able to add that into his efficiency. In fact, 11 free throw attempts for him. He's only exceeded that a few times. With the Pacers, he had a game with 15, and his high was 12 outside of that. 11 is huge for him. 35 points. He needed this game in the worst way. And he looked like the guy we saw last year. And the Knicks had trouble, and this is a theme that's going to come up several times today as we talk about different players, with some of the decisions they had to make, because they they don't have like the greatest defensive personnel when they try to play both Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns together, and they should try to do that. Those are 2 of their best players. But when the Pacers have all of Haliburton, Mathurin when he's cooking like he was tonight, we'll get to him momentarily, Siakam and Turner on the floor, one of them has to guard one of those 4 players. And it kind of shifted at times throughout the game, depending on who else was out there with those guys or what the situation required. But the Pacers were able to have someone have a good chance to score on given possessions, and they took advantage of that. Haliburton missed 1 2-pointer tonight. It was a left wing, I'll say 18-footer. In the paint, 6 for 6. Obviously, making every shot is critical, and so no one number becomes more important than the other. I think the fact that he took 6 shots in the painted area is very significant. Hitting 3 threes from above the break and 1 in the corner, that was a big shot. But the spread out variety, this is the guy he was last year when he could step back and create his own space and was menacing when he would actually get by guys. Remember, he had this problem, I would say, when he started with the Pacers where he couldn't quite beat his man all the way. He'd get like 3/4 of the way there, and then he'd go for this little hook shot because that's the space he created. When he started to get by guys completely, he was so threatening. Tonight he was doing that and hitting the threes. He was so good. And that kind of offensive engine and that kind of player is what made the Pacers last year at times. There he was. I had just written about his slump to start the season earlier on Sunday. I was prepared to come to this podcast with lots of stats. And I'm going to bring them anyway because I actually think they're relevant to this game. Because this was by far Haliburton's best game of the season. By far. And they needed this game. After how they played Friday, falling flat on their face in Charlotte. Charlotte lost to Philly Sunday night. Philly's second win of the season, right? Charlotte's not very good. The Pacers should have done much better than that in that game. They look terrible. To respond like this was huge, and Haliburton was a big part of it. So without getting the specifics of the numbers up in front of you, because I don't want to bog you down with numbers on numbers, this was a very research-heavy piece. But this year, entering Sunday, Haliburton was taking a higher percentage of his shots as open or wide open than the season before. He was shooting better this year than last year from inside 10 feet. And now that's certainly the case because he didn't miss in the paint tonight, right? His passes per game this year, entering Sunday, I don't have Sunday's numbers in front of me, were higher than last year. But his potential assists were down. And his regular assists are obviously down, right? So I understand that he was not, I can watch him and tell you without any numbers that he was not playing the same as last year, wasn't moving the same, right? Didn't have the same level of effectiveness. I can also tell you that a guy shooting better shots than last year, being more effective on the best shots than last year, passing a lot, but his teammates weren't shooting them as much, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. They could be moving it for other good opportunities, but not making the shots he's setting them up with as much. I can tell you that all those numbers point to someone trying to play the right way and not having success. And Haliburton has said that. He said, I'm slumping, but I think I'm trying to play the right way when that's happening, and it will end eventually. And my teammates trust that it will. And I'm not saying the slump is over because of one game, right? That's not necessarily reality, but this is his second good game out of 4. If you go back, to Dallas, and really you could even stretch this back farther. And I would say, yeah, I think since they went to Orlando, he's looked more like himself, right? That was his first double-double with assists. He had 22 the game before that. But, in Dallas, 25 and 12, then 17 the next game, then 9 assists the next game. Like I wish the stats weren't already on Basketball Reference so I could tell you what he's averaging since they went to Orlando in terms of points and assists together, because I bet it's close to his averages last year of 20 and 10, right? And so I didn't ever have a conclusion in this article. I was just, here's what Haliburton said, here's what's happening, here's what some of the trends are. But the fact to me that he was taking so many good looks, at least compared to last year, and passing a lot still and being asked to create a lot and still doing it. I understand that he looks a little different. The team's pace is a little slower. It's different personnel. I understand that. But that made me think that, yes, these numbers look bad now. The way he's playing isn't awesome. But he will, even if he doesn't reach last year's levels, he will be better than he has been through 9 games. And this was terrific, 35 and 14. We talked to Rick Carlisle before the game. He said they worked through in our team walkthrough session before the game, how they can get Tyrese the shots that make the most sense for him and how they can get him going. And in this game, that meant, lots of high up ball screens. Let him get ahead of steam or let him have more space. So he's a good ISO player without a bag, but let him get a screen or have an advantage created for him, right? If he has a matchup advantage, get it to him. Let him try to do something. We've seen him do that. So lots of things pointed to me to eventually him having at least one really great game. This was it. And the Pacers needed this. They stunk on Friday. Haliburton was not nearly this good against the Hornets. They fell under 500 in a game that they felt like, they were going in playing well, had a chance to climb over 500, feel really good about the way they're playing, and they fell flat on their face. To respond like this felt like last year's Pacers in that way. Last year's Pacers, after their worst games, would play awesome all the time. And so that Philly loss early this season, after they got smoked by the same Knicks team, made me go, last year's Pacers don't really do that. And they've done better since in terms of responding to crummy nights. They've won 4 of 6 now. And to have this kind of game with their star player playing like their star player, with their pace looking like their pace, with a couple other guys stepping up in major ways, despite missing several rotation players, which we will talk about in great detail in the last segment because we got lots of details on that tonight. Just a wow game from Tyrese Haliburton and a wow night for the Pacers, who really needed to get back on track and found a way to do it behind their star. Now, he was not the only exceptional player. This was the first regular season game in the Pacers NBA history where two players scored 35 plus. Yes, this has happened in the playoffs several times for the Pacers. First regular season game. Ben Mathurin, career high, equally terrific. So much more to get to on Mathurin, on Myles Turner, on the Pacers injury front, all on today's Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about any of that stuff, though, I have to tell you guys about FanDuel. You can get ready to tackle the NFL action and hop in on the NBA action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers over on FanDuel, hop in. You can get you bet $5, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and NBA all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, happens to everybody, comes for all of us. You can check out the latest stats. You can go view live play-by-play. You can do so much more on the same page where you place your bet, so you can be as informed as possible, act on your hunch at the right timing, and you can do all that on FanDuel.com. So just visit FanDuel.com today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen should be Locked On NBA because I hosted it with one of the Locked On Nuggets hosts, Swipe a Cam. We talked about this Pacers-Knicks game and several great games in the league. Lots of good playoff matchups or good teams from last year who could have met in the playoffs. Celtics, Bucks, Nuggets, Mavs, Warriors, Thunder, Chet Holmgren's injury. We got into all of it. It's really good stuff. And I'll be on there Tuesday night, again, with Wes Goldberg. So that'll be posted on Wednesday. Let's keep rolling here on Pacers Knicks, and specifically Ben Mathurin, who they need in a huge way. This is the undersold part of what just happened. Everyone should and will, including me in just like 30 seconds, talk about how awesome he was. Scoring 38 points. It's amazing. His defense was pretty good, right? They needed all of it. Every single thing. He's been so efficient this year. He's been incredible. That's all true, and we'll get there in just a second. He played 41 and a half minutes. Nembhard out, Nesmith out, Toppin out. Walker played a lot. Furphy only played 4 minutes. TJ McConnell still sick-ish. He played. They need any guard minutes they can get, any wing minutes they can get. Walker has to play up because Toppin's gone, right? Like, they don't have a lot of wings. Ben Shepherd only played 22 minutes and 40 seconds, right? They needed Mathurin a ton in this game, and he produced the entire time. That is so hard to do. He was sensational. His best game ever to me. He's had games with more rebounding, more assists, whatever. What they needed from him tonight was a lot to ask. A lot of scoring, a lot of threes, pretty decent defense. He gave them all of it for a lot of time. Terrific game from Ben Mathurin. For my money, best we've ever seen. We got to see the future lineup, potentially. Jarris, Mathurin, and the three-headed monster of Haliburton, Turner, Siakam. It was pretty good. And Mathurin was a huge part of making it all possible because he was a scoring machine. 38 points in this game, as I already said. 7 for 9 from 3, 6 for 9 from 2. Better efficiency from deep than inside the arc. But he's been amazing inside the arc all season. That's what's transformed his game the most to me. When I've talked about what he needed to do to start in my head, it was all about fit. And I've said this a million times, so some of you are going to be hearing the same thing again. Efficiency would make him fit better on offense, and improved defense would make him a better fit with the starters. Well, his efficiency has improved, and not in the way many kind of thought maybe this would be the way he would start, by making threes. Instead, by being insanely good in the lane. He's been unbelievable 14 feet and in this season. That continued tonight. Despite an imperfect night inside the arc, Ben Mathurin on 6 for 9 for twos. Only 2 misses in the paint. 2 mid-range misses off to the left side. Everything else went in inside the arc. Lights out. And bombing away from 3 from everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. It was ridiculous how impressive he was shooting. 3 threes from the right slot, but 3 on the left side as well. 4 threes from the right slot, excuse me. The variety of shot making was special. 7 threes is huge. 6 free throw attempts. That kind of efficiency changed the game. The Knicks could not guard him. The choice they made a lot, because I mentioned this earlier, Brunson and Cat, they wanted both out there. And those two guys finished, like, it sounds like I'm picking on them because I am a little bit. They finished with 63 points. They played really good games, right? This is just kind of a constant problem the Knicks have. Their bottom 10 in defense is that they have to guard players. And Cat can't be on a perimeter player. So he specifically is going to be on one of Turner or Siakam. So Brunson's going to be on, if the Pacers line up this way, one of likely Haliburton or Mathurin. And if he's not, he's on Ben Shepherd, and Ben Shepherd's just going to move around and set a million screens. So there were often possessions where there was a mismatch advantage for Ben Mathurin because they chose a lot of times to put Anunoby and Bridges on Haliburton, Siakam, right? And that's smart, but those two guys still had good games. Mathurin absolutely crushed in that environment. The scoring was brilliant. They needed him to get to the basket, and he did. Drew lots of fouls. Like, he had 6 free throws, doesn't sound like a lot, but I think half of them, if not more, I think more than half of them were on and ones, right? If he had missed the shots, his attempts would have been higher. 8 boards. He has been transformative for this team on the glass. They have not been a good rebounding team this year. They have been since Dallas, I would say, a little more so. But Myles Turner had, I think, 3 games in a row with 10. He only had 6 tonight. Mathurin stepped up. 8. Tied for the team lead. 2 assists, only 1 turnover. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Top to bottom. They could not put the right guy on him to stop him. It was so unbelievable to see Ben Mathurin play this way. And clutch moments. Again, Pacers in maybe not trouble. So to be clear, second half, the Pacers, Haliburton 21, Mathurin 17, Turner 18. Those 3 carried. The biggest play of the game to me was a Ben Mathurin bucket. It was one of the only plays that Haliburton didn't score or assist on in the whole fourth quarter. The game was getting a little tight. The Pacers were kind of controlling it. You know, they were up 3 with 5:43 to go, and then Turner hit 2 huge threes, but the Knicks were kind of surging, right? Brunson scored, and then Towns hit a free throw, and then Brunson scored again. It was getting close. It was like a 6-point game. And then with 3:43 to go, Pascal Siakam is so wide open 3 in the corner, and here comes Ben Mathurin skying in from the other side of the floor. Lots of Knicks under the basket. This ball did not bounce very far from the rim. This wasn't some fluky long rebound. Mathurin jumps, catches, and finishes all in the air. Puts the Pacers up 8 after their lead kind of tumbled from, not like huge, but you know, their momentum was kind of shifting towards the Knicks, and their stars had just scored. Huge basket. Absolutely huge play. And then Ben Shepherd hits his only 3 of the game on the Pacers' next offensive possession. Pacers were up 9. They never looked back. They got up 10 very quickly after that. That moment from Mathurin was so, so huge. It is impossible to describe how good he was in this game with the stats. You just kind of had to see it. Like, anytime the Pacers looked like, this possession might not be it for them, doesn't matter. Ben Mathurin can pull up and hit a 3 or get to the basket. Sensational. Mathurin and Haliburton combined 73 points, 10 rebounds, 16 assists, both over plus 10. Massive, massive, massive. The other massive player from scoring night won't get as much buzz. His first half was not nearly as good as his second half, and that first impression certainly mattered in this game, was Myles Turner. 26 and 6 for Turner with 2 blocks and a steal. He did have some struggling moments guarding Towns in the first half and didn't look as good, but as soon as he got going, that's kind of when the Knicks defense had no answers, right? Because of, I don't want to go through the description again of why their defense was wobbly, but in the second half, the Pacers scored 74 points. They had 44th quarter points because Cat had to guard either Pascal Siakam, who's playing at an all-star level this whole season, or Myles Turner, who's just lighting him up in the second half. Turner hit 2 threes in the third quarter that were huge, that took the Pacers from down 6 to tied, like in a snap. I can't snap with my left hand, but in a snap. Then in the fourth quarter, when it was kind of getting close-ish, he did it again. He hit 2 threes on consecutive possessions to extend the Pacers' lead. So 12 of his points, almost half, were just completely momentum-toppling sequences. 5 for 8 from deep for Turner on his way to that 26 points. He was plus 14. They needed him a lot tonight. They had no backup centers. Kind of, we'll get to that in a second. Toppin was out. First game Obi Toppin's missed since they traded for him, right? Obviously, no Jackson and Wiseman. They're done for a long time. So they had Enrique Freeman and Myles Turner. And it was very clear what they were trying to do. This is not injury related, so I can do this now. When Cat was out there, Myles Turner was out there. When Jericho Sims was out there, Enrique Freeman was out there. Karl Towns Myles Turner had 14 seconds he played when Karl Towns wasn't out there, and then Jericho Sims had 14 seconds he played when Freeman wasn't out there because it was Turner. Other than that, their minutes lined up exactly. They needed Turner to play 39 minutes. That's a lot for him. It's a lot for any center in the NBA, and he was up for it and was outside of some rebounding flubs, especially in the first half, was great. They needed all of it. Shout out to Enrique Freeman for filling in when he could. Pacers couldn't go small like they like to. And in the end, those three guys were 99 points for the Pacers. That's ridiculous for a three. And they needed all of it to get it done. And they did. Credit to all those guys. Huge nights. A couple more notes I want to get to, plus injury updates that, yikes, Pacers are going to be playing like the group we saw tonight, maybe for a little bit here. They can't really afford any more injuries. Whew. So much more to get to on today's Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about anything else, though, I got to tell you guys about the great people over at Gametime who have a new feature called Gametime Picks. It's going to make getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime will help you get tickets to anything, sports, comedy, theater, whatever you want to go see. And Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. But if you do, and you should with Gametime, because they will show you lots of great tickets with their many awesome features, curated deals to find the best price, super deals, seat views of the venue before you buy, their lowest price guarantee. They have job loss protection, event cancellation protection. You can toggle off and on all-in pricing, everything that you would want in a ticket buying app. Gametime has it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Knicks. Knicks 4-5. They have a good point differential. They are still 4-5. What's going on there? How can they improve their defense? How can they help Karl Towns out a little bit? That was Haliburton's best start of the season by far. Mathurin was bananas. Just going through my notes, stuff I want to talk about. Third quarter. I guess we'll get to this a little bit. We're touching on injuries. A big stretch in the third was late in the third as the Pacers, they got down by like 10 at one point right after Turner's pair of threes. There was a stretch with all three of Quentin Jackson, Jarris Walker, and Enrique Freeman on the floor at the same time. And the Pacers did very well in that stretch. It was actually a very critical moment in the game that trio, combined with, I forget who else was on the floor, was able to keep up and even chip into the lead a little bit as the Pacers kind of wobbled and, were on the brink of that game kind of getting out of hand. It got this, I believe, 75-65. Yes, that was a score with 7:42 to go. Walker comes in. Quentin Jackson comes in with 5:47 to go. Freeman comes in with 5:16 to go. All of a sudden, the Pacers are down 4. Then they're down 2. Then it was tied with 3:28 to go. Right, that stretch was huge in this game to me, that those three were able to thrive in those moments. They needed everything they could get from those guys. The Pacers team defense, I thought, was really good in this game. The number 121 is going to scream off the page. A lot of that was that Karl Towns was really good and Jalen Brunson's really good. They were just beating guys off the dribble. That's individual defense. That was kind of what you see from the Pacers a lot these days. But their team defense, they were up at the nail when they needed to be. Their rotations were crisp. I thought they played a really, really good team defense game, which was important at times. Like Knicks shot poorly from three and did not get up very many at all. The rebounding element wasn't there as much for the Knicks as some other teams have had success with the Pacers. I thought their team defense was really good. Never will get talked about because his stat line finished like below standard for him. 14-8-3 for Siakam doesn't sound great. He started awesome, absolutely awesome, and they needed him to be terrific at the beginning of the game. I'm sorry I'm looking off to the left for you YouTube watchers. My internet's giving me problems, so I set stuff up on 2 tabs. But the very start of this game for Siakam was huge. The Pacers needed someone to set the tone and get him going. He hit a 3 early. He was involved in an assist, but that 3 got him the lead. Then he hit a pull-up with 8:18 to go. Then a couple possessions later, he had another bucket. That start was really important. He's been great for them all season as a tone setter. Mathurin and Turner both were scoring pretty well early, but Siakam's shot has just looked a little better this season. So outside of the Pacers having trouble keeping the best Knicks scorers away from the rim, pretty good performance from the team in terms of playing with juice, having their stars be good at critical times, depth stepping up for a banged-up team, finding a way to win on a night that they needed it. Falling to 4-6 would have hurt. They didn't. They avoided it. They keep making up for their bad losses, but they shouldn't need to make up for their bad losses. Speaking of bad, okay, let's do the not fun part of this, injuries. And this will be a theme for lots of Locked On Pacers episodes for like a month. Things are shaking up. So Mathurin's a starter now. He's just going to be the rest of the season. He has to be, right? Now that he is a better defender and a more efficient player, that's the two things he need to do to fit better with the starters. He should start every way the rest of the season. I'm calling it after 10 games. That's way earlier than I would usually call something like that. Either way, irrelevant. I only say that because me saying that, two of the Pacers' typical starters, Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith, were out for this game. Nembhard's been out, Nesmith's been out for a bit. We learned today from Rick Carlisle before the game, Aaron Nesmith's out till December. That's actually closer than you think because it's almost been November, but still a long ways away. December is basically exactly 3 weeks away. That's a lot of games to miss, and he's already missed a few. I can't remember exactly what game he got hurt in. I believe it was Dallas. But from now till December 1st, that's at least 11 more games missed from Nesmith if he comes back on December 1st. Andrew Nembhard's out at least 2 weeks. Rick Carlisle said 2 to 3 weeks was the exact phrasing. In that situation, he's going to miss 7, 8, 9, 10 more games, right? That's 2 starters out for a decent amount of time. Now, that's just those 2 short-term injuries. Also for this game, obviously no Jackson Wiseman. That's 4 guys out. Tristan Newton was playing for the Mad Ants as Rick Carlisle was saying these things. That's 5 guys out. Then we know TJ McConnell's sick. He played fine, but didn't play a lot in a game that they were limited on depth. So I'd assume that was kind of bothering him. And then we learned for the first time in a Pacers uniform, I already said this, but still, Obi Toppin out, ankle injury. I called this, unfortunately, because he didn't play very well in Charlotte, wasn't moving great. And then they cut to the bench in the fourth quarter of that game, and Obi Toppin was standing behind the guys like in the huddle, and he was stretching his left leg with like a band, right? So he was listed questionable. He was out for the first time. You know it's bad when a guy who hasn't missed a game in a year and change, like he played 100 straight games for the Pacers, right, is out. So that's 5 injuries plus Tristan Newton on a 2A, making 6 of the 17 Pacers not available. They had 11 guys available. One of them was James Johnson. So they had 10 guys. They played all of them. To Rick Carlisle's credit a little bit, he was able to play 10 of his 11 available players. Johnny Furphy played rotation minutes for the second straight game. Quentin Jackson again. Enrique Freeman was the backup center, right? He had to pull out everybody, and nobody looked lost or totally sunk them, right? Furphy only played 4 minutes and 20 seconds, but all those bench guys were solid. Quentin Jackson was pretty good. 2 for 2, 1 rebound, 1 assist, only 1 foul, no turnovers, right? They needed that. Freeman battled. His energy is important. He had 2 assists in this game. Jarris Walker's defense was huge, even though his offense has really faded away since that incredible night he had in that building a couple days ago, right? All those guys, Furphy 0 for 2, but did snag a rebound. He keeps scoring on plays where there's like a foul, like right before he shoots. Either way, they needed all the rookies or the 2-way players, like Quentin Jackson's played like 12 NBA games. They need them to contribute, and they did. They really did. Jackson was okay in Charlotte, too. He's done some good stuff. They needed him to be a guard. Like, they had 7 of their expected rotation guys tonight, and they beat the Knicks. Like, that is a huge win. We'll see about Toppin. If they get Toppin back for the next 2 or 3 weeks, assuming no one else gets hurt, which given this Pacers season, everybody knock on wood, I mean, my gosh. If they get Toppin back, because they have 2 days off now, they could not have asked for a better time to finally have 2 days off. If they get Toppin back for Wednesday in Orlando, they'll have 8. That's fine. You can live with 8. They'll have to live with probably, and that would probably knock Freeman out of the rotation if Toppin plays. They'd probably have to live with those 8 plus 1 of Furphy or Jackson, right? I would guess a little bit of Quentin Jackson. He played tonight with McConnell back, which I thought was the separating factor to me. I wasn't sure how that would work because in Charlotte they didn't have Nembhard or McConnell. I would guess Jackson would be the 9th guy in that reality, and he'd be playing for a couple weeks. He's got more NBA experience than any of the rookies, and you guys know I've always thought he's a decent player. He's got some speed. You know, his top speed's crazy. He doesn't have a lot of the in-between speeds, but man, when he gets moving, he can move. So that's what I will guess would be the case, is that it would be the 8 expected guys and then Jackson, but they can't afford a lot more injuries, and we'll see if they decide to add somebody with their open roster spot. But that's where they are injury-wise. So people are going to have to step up, right? Ben Shepherd's probably going to start this whole time. And he has to almost, right? Because, okay, the other 4 starters available are great. Like Mathurin's been awesome this year. Siakam's been an all-star. Haliburton's all NBA level. You know, and Turner's been much better since the Dallas game. Like those four are going to start. They're great. The best fit of the remaining players is Ben Shepherd, right? Jarris Walker, you could argue could be in there, but I think that the five that started this game, assuming no one else gets hurt for this 3+ week stretch without Nesmith or Nembhard and other guys, I think those five will start. And then they have a guard, McConnell, a wing, Walker, and a big Toppin to fill in as the subs. And those guys can all play multiple positions except for McConnell. And then they'll sprinkle in what they need elsewhere. But I would guess Quentin Jackson would be guy 9. But they might need some size. They might need a try for a fee. They might need a center if there's foul trouble. That's when, like, I think Freeman and Jackson are probably going to be with the Pacers that whole time, which stinks for the Mad Ants who just started their season. But such is life. And if there's another guard injury, Tristan Newton, it's his time. So that's what the Pacers are. That's tough. That's why wins like this matter. That's why I think look, they probably should have beat the Pelicans. They have more talent than them, but did not play well. They definitely should have beat Philly at home, but Tyrese Maxey kicked their butt in the second half and they played bad. And they got smoked by Charlotte. Of those 3 games, they played so bad in Charlotte, they shouldn't have won. And Zion and Brandon Ingram were so good in New Orleans. Okay, whatever. The Stars were great. The Philly game is going to haunt them, I think, for a while. If they could be 6-4 right now, I think they'd feel good about how they've survived the early season struggles of injuries and Haliburton not being Haliburton. But if this upcoming stretch is going to be huge, right? They're about to hit the easiest stretch of their schedule. I'll talk about that in a segment when the time comes, of their whole season to me. If they can survive with who they have available, that's just so critical. And that's why wins like tonight are so important, because they need to be bagging them now in case things get even harder in terms of available bodies and what's coming. But huge win for the Pacers. Huge, huge, huge. Mathurin, massive. Haliburton, massive. Turner, extremely timely. Siakam started things off. Great game from a lot of guys. Ben Shepherd hit the dagger 3. Everyone contributed. And the Pacers are 5-5, a chance to get back over 500 again on Wednesday in Orlando, a team they just beat, but they lost in Orlando earlier this season, and that game was tough when they just played the Magic. Magic have now won 2 in a row. We'll have all that coverage right here on Locked On Pacers. Thank you guys a ton for listening and tuning in today. You can find me at Tony R. East in this podcast at Locked On Pacers. You can also find me on Locked On NBA for 2 of the next 3 episodes. Be back tomorrow talking more Pacers, a rare day off. So we'll get a guest in to kind of assess the team's reality through 10 games. Hope you all enjoyed today's show. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you very soon.